and welcome to the first episode back to Behind the Wrestler for 2021. And to kick it off, and I couldn't think of a better way to kick off the first episode of 2021 than a international tag team who are known as New Wave. They are George Francis and Callum
Cornell.
Cornell.
I just wanted to do the dramatic pause so I could see the look on his face.
I was like, oh
no. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your guys' busy schedules and giving us an inside story of you guys.
Busy schedules.
The time difference, you know.
Busy schedules in lockdown.
Schedules in lockdown. Okay, so very first question, which you guys have, going to be asked multiple times throughout your career. Who, when, and where inspired you to become a professional wrestler, and how did you guys go about it and trying to find a training school?
Callum, do you want to take this one first?
Okay.
With your one, and then I'll go.
So the first proper memory I have that's not one of the Road Warriors getting hit with a bucket by one of the Godwins is definitely the Hardys versus Edge and Christian at some stage on SmackDown. I couldn't tell you which one it was because there's been loads of matches they've had on SmackDown. But I saw that, and that's what made me a fan. And then I was in Jersey, and I didn't, at the time when I was a kid, there wasn't really a school for it. And then when I grew up and everything, I went to uni, and eventually I found out there were schools in England, and I never actually realized there was a school in Jersey the whole time, but we'll just skip that bit. And eventually I saw the Rev Pro school, and I went to England and watched a show live, my first show live. It was a progress show at the Electric Ballroom, and I was watching it, and I was like, I could try this. And then eventually I decided that's what I was going to do, because working for 2 years in Jersey wasn't doing it. And I was like, yeah. So I moved back to Portsmouth, where I went to uni, because I knew the city, and that's where the Rev Pro school was. So it's pretty much the whole story, with me wasting 2 years of my life being a fool in the middle there.
I think so. So my one is fairly bog standard, especially for British wrestling guys who are probably coming through the ranks now. So the typical, I've been a fan of wrestling for ages. I actually dipped out of wrestling early secondary school, so I was about 11 or 12, and then I got back into it about the age of 14. But the actual thing that got me into it was watching a Best of the Super Juniors match in New Japan, and I can actually tell you where I was. I was in France. I was in the south of France, just watching it on watching GIFs on Twitter, and it was Will Ospreay versus Ricochet. It's probably the most. It's the most typical match of oh yeah, that match inspired me. But I'm not even joking. I was watching this match, and I was like, I want to fucking do that.
Yeah.
So when it came to looking at schools, it took me actually quite a while to get to a school, because it was really tough to actually find places. Like Callum says, Callum's from Jersey, and he had a school in a very short proximity to you comparative to me, yet he struggled to find it. Most wrestling guys will probably tell you that they, unless it was in their area, within their town, they struggled to find a school, or they knew guys they were doing it from a young age. Unless it's that, I struggled for a year to find the school, and then I joined what I think at that time was the Projo, and it's now been rebranded to Knuckle Locks. And I did what was called their beginner's course. But as I was finishing the beginner's course, I was going down to uni in Portsmouth. Spoke to a couple of the trainers, and they were like, oh yeah, go to Portsmouth School of Wrestling, go to Rev Pro's school. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'll go there. Yeah, their head trainer taught us. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'll definitely go there then. And that's basically how I ended up in Rev Pro. It took me a month or two to settle into uni and then go to the school. But It was basically as simple as that. Like, I went to one school, I basically transferred to another, I guess.
I actually found out after I like went home from uni, because I was at uni in Portsmouth, and I found out later that I lived like 20 minutes from the school. I was like, ugh.
Yeah, because where did you live in Portsmouth, like in your second or third year? Because I think
I lived down like Montgomery Road.
Yeah,
which
because I lived
is-
down Talbot Road like 2 years after, and that was like a stone's
Yeah.
throw away.
Yeah, so yeah, that was embarrassing when I found out.
20 minutes away, but
Yeah, all of these times where I was just like really close to it and never realized. But
I'm not gonna lie, I miss being able to walk to a wrestling school rather than like a 1.5 hour drive or like a 2 hour train journey. Life was so much easier with a 15-minute walk.
yeah, it always is. It always is.
Yeah.
Less travel time is always good. You guys, both going to Rev Pro Portsmouth School of Wrestling. Going in there on your guys' first day, how did you guys prepare for it? What was your expectations, and what did you guys take away from your first wrestling training? Oh well, first wrestling training for you, Callum, and Rev Pro would be your second, George.
Shall I take this one?
You can
From the top.
start since
I'll
you
start.
were there first.
So walking in, I didn't know what to expect because with the Projo beginners course, they taught you set things. You had to pass those, and then you'd be able to make like intermediate training,
Right.
like quote unquote. And the beginners training, it was like bumps, rolls, basic grappling, strikes, etc. But with like, I didn't know what I was walking into. I didn't know if like I was expected to know like certain things or whatever. Like when I first walked into my first session at Portsmouth, because it was a beginner session, but it was different to what I knew. So that always like can put you at odds. But I remember walking in and it was incredibly welcoming. I remember I learned a lot in that one session. It was like 2.5, 3 hours long. But like I was still learning stuff, obviously, that I didn't know, but it was also learning stuff that I wanted to learn. Like the first half hour was cardio, the next hour and a half was grappling, and the last hour was like the coach essentially asking us, what moves do you want to learn? And we were like, oh, this would be cool, this would be cool, this would be cool. And he was like, cool. Out of all those awesome moves you've listed, we're going to learn the most basic awesome moves that you said, i.e. like a drop kick or something like that. Like, because I think like one person I remember said a shooting star press, and I was like, I can't learn that yet. I've had like 5 sessions. Like no, I can't do that now. I wish I could do that. And it's like 3 or 4 years later.
Shooting star's like the wiggiest one to do though.
Oh mate, I've seen people do them so perfectly. There's a friend of mine, I think Callum, you might have met him, called like Callum Newman, and he's like 18, and he can do
I
like a
don't think I've
perfect.
met him.
Have you not? He's like 18 and he can do a perfect shooting star off the second rope, and I'm like,
I've heard of him.
what's-
Yeah.
yeah. He's ridiculously talented. He's been wrestling since he was like in diapers. So
Oh wow. There you go. So for my one, I always had like a good memory of like stuff that I'd read about. Like in Jericho's book, he goes into detail about his training and stuff. And I like YouTubed some videos of like the exercises you might get asked to do, just basic stuff. And then I'd also already done like MMA and kickboxing for 3 years beforehand.
Oh, nice.
So I was like, okay, I'm pretty fit. I've not been training since I've been home properly, but once I decided I was gonna move and start wrestling, I was doing like, I'd get home from work and I'd do like 50 to 100 press ups, and then at the weekend I'd go for a run. I was like, because I was like, I'm gonna turn up in shape and turn up ready for whatever happens. I don't know what it will be, but so then when I walked in, it was when the school had started doing actual beginner sessions then on the Mondays. So it was Dan McGee was taking the sessions and Rishi Ghosh was taking the sessions at the time. And I think I walked in and it was Dan McGee was there, because I distinctly remember Dan McGee was the first person I properly spoke to about it. And basically I did the warm up, did like the press ups and the squats and everything, and then just did bumps and rope running and just rolling around the ring, tumbling and stuff, getting used to it. And then the next day I woke up and I couldn't move properly, because that's what happens after the first day.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to, because I haven't trained since we've had a COVID outbreak in the UK. I'm not looking forward to the first bumps back.
Oh yeah, always.
I've heard, yeah, no, it's like what, 9 months later, 10 months later.
Oh, yeah.
I always got to go back when it first got lifted for a bit. So
Yeah, I didn't get that opportunity. I didn't like have the ability or the financial services to be able to get down.
You're gonna feel like an old man when you hit that first bump. You're gonna be like, oh.
I'm gonna like hit my first bump and I'm gonna get back up and I'm gonna be like, I've got a broken spine now. I am not the same person I was.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't remember if we did anything else in my first session. I don't remember if I did anything else or if we did anything else like specific. I just remember doing the bumps.
Was Josh and Ken at your first session?
Yeah, they taught me to do the bumps.
Oh, fair. Okay.
And then I did like bumps for a few bits, and then I was put in with the rest of the group, and we did something, but I don't remember what exercise we did. It was something, get in the ring, do something else, and roll out, but I don't remember what. Who knows? Could have been anything.
I don't think, like, hilariously, I don't think I was actually at your first session, because there was like a period in December where like I didn't go for a month because of Christmas and uni deadlines.
Oh no, it was January I went, so you would have been there.
Oh, I probably would have been there then.
You were definitely there.
I'm trying to. Oh, okay, cool.
I remember you being there. Don't worry.
Cool, because that's me, the loudmouth. What?
And you know, like getting a couple of trainings under your guys' belts and stuff, and then having a good friendship and a good relationship. How did you guys come about of pitching a tag team, and what made you guys come together as a tag team, and how did all of that accumulate, form, and go into fruition?
So I think me personally, I always liked the idea of a tag team.
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't think there's enough of them, and I don't think there's a lot of them, especially like faces in the British circuit. Like when it comes to face tag teams, I remember having this conversation with, I want to say it was Rob Lias, and we were chatting, and he was like, "Look, you've managed to hit like a bit of a niche band. Just kind of like keep working at it and keep pushing it, because there's always demand for face tag teams." Like off the top of my head, there's a number of tag teams, but I can't think of many face ones. Like Aussie Open is the one to go to in Britain at the moment. But even then, before lockdown, for like half a year to a year, one half of them was like out with a knee injury. So I think at the time, I think I pitched it to Callum originally before we even pitched it to Quilden.
Right.
Yeah, George came up to me and he was like, "Oh yeah, there's like some good heel teams, but they have no like face team to work against. Every show they're working against two singles guys as a team."
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Do you reckon it would be a good idea if we decided to be a face team, and then we'll get to work these guys who are good and who are heel teams?"
Yeah, who are experienced.
And then it means that they'll have actual like dedicated opponents they can work against as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and I was like, that sounds like a great idea.
And like it's kind of for the time being at the moment, it's kind of worked out for us, because we've had four or five tag matches against like established guys.
Yeah,
we
every tag match we've had where it's just us and two other people, it's been against a established team that have worked together longer than we have. So
yeah,
we get to learn stuff every time.
Yeah, a lot. Like we our first match was like our debut was against, what was it? Are they Nasty Old Boys?
Something like Dirty Old Boys, something like that.
I think it's Nasty Old Boys, but it was
Might be,
basically it was Sensational Simon Durden and Dirty Dave Dennis,
Right.
and in our first match, and it was quite fun because it's our debut. We're two young guys, and against two more experienced guys. I remember training with Dave when I first started out, and Simon when I first started out, and we had a great like small storyline. I think we were like third on the card.
Yeah, it was a fun match because it was like they're very character based. So
And we're not / we weren't at that point, especially. We were like, we're two guys who can wrestle and we can do some cool moves. And
we're
we're
two
young.
guys who can kind of wrestle and have come up with some good tag moves.
Yeah.
So luckily they could carry the heavy lifting on getting the crowd engaged, and we could just kind of follow with them.
Right.
So we didn't have to actually do too much. Like if you watch that match back, we didn't actually have to do that much in it, and the crowd were already engaged and they were up for everything we did. And
I just got my leg beaten up a lot.
We didn't have to do a lot in the match either.
Yeah.
But in your first match, that's kind of good because you want to get in there and get a feel for the crowd for the first time.
Yeah, like there was no like for us, we could have prepared in every sort of way possible for our first match, but I don't think anything would have prepared us for that crowd at all.
George looked like he was about to vomit before we went out.
Yeah. The thing is, right, is that hasn't changed like at all. I always do that, but I've always been like that.
Every match, right, as we're stood on the stairs to go on the stage, George is like, "What are the spots?" And I was like, "You'll be fine."
I'm always like that, and then we go out there, and I'm like, I have no problems remembering the spots.
Yeah.
But like, I've always been like that. Whenever I've done dance or drama, yeah. I'm the worst when it comes to the half hour before a match. But the moment I get out there, I'm like, I'm fine. I'm at home. I'm back again. What's up?
That debut match was 2019.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was.
Was it the summer?
Yeah, it was the summer of 2019. It was like June 8th because it was 2 days before my birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like a month before mine.
That's when I was over there.
Yeah, that's when we met you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when we met Karthik.
Yeah.
Because we went flyering for that show. Well, postering for that show.
Yeah, postering and everything, and we I remember sitting at the merch table and watching you guys come out and seeing that match like live and being there, and you can just see how much time and effort and dedication you guys put in for your guys' debut match. Where, and you know, for anybody who ends up watching this, no offense to the other guys, not many people do that. They're just like, yeah, it's a debut match. It's all right. I just want to get my title. But you guys, day in and day out, and training with you guys as well while I was over there, you guys were there, you know, all the training sessions, putting in the work, going over your guys' moves, and then just putting in the time and the effort. And then like me just being a fan and watching it was probably seeing a team who's been so much like prepared for their very first match, where like everything was fluid and everything just went like meshed together and was all like synced up and it was all smooth. And like how you said, Callum, like, you know, Dirty Dave's team had to pick up all of like the character side of stuff to get the crowd in, but you guys were over as your guys' debut match. And I could remember you guys coming out and just seeing like the smiles on your guys' faces of like this is it, like this is our debut match, and it's either, you know, time to put up or shut up. And taking that experience away and walking away from your guys' debut match, what was the feeling like, and how did you guys prepare for your next match?
So coming out of that match was like ecstasy afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's the only way I can explain it. Like, we came out of it and we came back to the locker room and I was like, that was amazing, but I need to get feedback from like all the experienced guys who watched that match.
That's pretty much what we did. We went backstage and we like we like collapsed against the wall because we adrenaline dumped because
Oh,
it was the
Yeah,
first
in
match.
like
Yeah.
a second as we walked out back,
we were just
like,
we were just like squatting against the wall, and then we were like, I think that went well. Do you think that went well? And it was like, yeah, I think it went well. And then we were like, we should probably ask everyone else. So we
was quite
immediately just
funny.
went and asked for feedback.
yeah, we got like, I think we got like quite an aggressive compliment as well, like from Lucian Phillips. Do you remember? He was like, I think he was gearing up just before his match though, so I think he was like getting himself in the zone but also complimenting us at the same
I
time.
can't remember if he'd been on just before us or was going on just after us. I think he'd been on before us. I think
he
he
might
was
have
on
been.
before us and he watched us.
It might have been, but it was like he was giving us like a lot of like really nice compliments, like for your debut match.
Yeah.
And then, but it was like quite aggressive that I was like, I'm taking that what you're saying is a compliment, but you're saying it in a way where like I'm not sure if it's a compliment.
Yeah.
Like, but no, I love Lucian. He's well, he can be. He is lovely. But like preparing for our next match was so different because we had
that was the elimination one, wasn't it?
Was it?
Yeah, that was the survivors.
Yeah, like sorry, I was thinking about a later tag match, but the elimination tag that was different because obviously me and Callum had prepared so long to work just us two together,
Right.
and then we had to work with two other people as well for a 4v4 elimination match,
And we had very limited time, so
incredibly limited time on that because there was like
3 or 4 of them on the show.
Yeah, there was 3 or 4 elimination tags, but like the last 4v4 was a TLC match.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So
the earlier matches was very much get yourself over with your spot, or spots if you're lucky, but then you do need to keep your times tight and get out. So that was kind of like a different exercise. That was an exercise in condensing like as much excitement as you can into a small enough time to leave an impact, and also like learning the valuable lesson of keeping to your times, because I think our match went like perfect for time.
I think it just went perfect for time. Our bit went perfect.
Our bit went perfect for time.
Our bit went perfect for time. But it was like, but it wasn't just that. I think it was also, humbling is the wrong word, but it was like, it was a realization that every storyline you're involved in, you won't be the focal point of as well. Because a lot of that storyline in that one match was to get a good mate of ours, like Ben Black, over in one match. And at the time I was like, oh, but I've got like all these cool ideas for a 4v4 elimination match, and they'll be like beat. But I was thinking about it more as a high profile main event indie or New Japan main event rather than family show. Like, tell the story.
You were thinking of it like everyone's in here for equal time, everyone gets like equal shine.
Yeah.
How you're approaching it. And I remember I had to say to you, I was just like, I understand what you're saying, but this isn't the match for that. So and because you gave me your list of ideas, and I was like, yeah, these are all good, but this isn't the match for that. So like, pick your best 2 and do those,
and we'll work with
that's
that.
all you're gonna. I was like, pick like your favorite idea that you want to do, and that's probably all you'll have time for, and we'll just do that really well.
It was quite funny though, because I remember because it was a show day, we basically have like 3 hours of training, go to the venue, set up, go over matches, show starts. And what was quite interesting is that I was still training at the venue because I think some of the guys had left early, and of all the people, he now refers to himself as Mad Kurt. I was like literally messing about in the ring, trying stuff. And I did that springboard blockbuster, which we now use as our finisher, which we still haven't been able to hit for like ages now.
Oh, that's where it came from. We were messing about. We were
messing about. Yeah, I was just doing springboard elbow drops, springboard blockbusters. I was just trying stuff out, like just on. And literally Mad Kurt himself just saw it and he was like, "Are you using that in the match later?" And I was like, "No, I was just messing about." And he was
we were like, no, we're just doing stuff to see what happens.
Yeah, and he was like, "You should do that in the match later." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I can't even remember what the move was beforehand now.
Oh, it was you can see it in the first match and it's very different, but it's not as good. It's I have to lift them up and then you just do the blockbuster, but it doesn't look as good.
Oh, what? Yeah, from the top,
Yeah,
rather than
it looks terrible compared to the actual
springboard. The springboard works like it seems more fluid as well and less jarring. But yeah, I think we were literally just messing about, and Mad Kurt was like, "Yeah,
it was literally that you did it, and we were like, oh, we could do that as a move, and then Kurt was like, oh, you're gonna do that at the show later, and we were like, no, we're just messing about with it, and he was like, do it at the show, and we were like, well, we already have like a finish, and he was like, springboards are cool, do it at the show, and we were like, okay, well, that's
to be
fair
fair, it got a really big pop when we hit it, because we were like,
yeah, and then we hit it, and we were like, okay, he's right, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So we've just kept that since, but then since then we haven't been able to hit it, so that's been fun.
Oh no, it's like getting like a feedback from Matt Kurt is, and like him telling you guys, like if he sees something that he likes, and everything is like more like, if there's something that he sees that he's like, that person should do this, he's very adamant of like, you should do this, and then there's a reason behind it.
Yeah.
And it's like a very good example of like you guys just messing about and just hitting that, and he was just there, and he's like, cool, do that at the show, and like do that at the show, and you guys do it, and it's like, cool, and now you guys finish, and it's like it's a really cool thing to have when like someone like Matt Kurt, who's had plenty of matches under his belt, and getting feedback and getting move sets from him is quite humbling as well.
Yeah, like we go to him for like move ideas now. Sometimes when we come up with stuff, I think it's him and like Gideon Gray.
Literally him and Gideon. Yeah, like 9 times out of 10.
We come up with moves or ideas, and we go to them, and we're like, "Oh, we've got this. Do you think it will be good?" And they'll be like, they'll either be like, "No, it don't do that," or "Yeah, it will be good," or they'll be like, "Actually, do it like this," and then you try it their way, and then you're like, yeah,
that's better. That's better.
Yeah.
And then like whenever Callum goes over there, he gets a lovely like, "Oh, hi. Yeah, what do you need me for?" And when I go over to Gideon, he just Germans me. So
everyone loves me.
Everyone, I just get Germaned. So
yeah, but okay. I can see that. I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. What are some of the difficulties and challenges that you guys had to face while forming this team? And also, what are the challenges that you guys had to like overcome with certain teams that you guys have had to wrestle so far?
See, this is like an interesting question, because I think it like one of the main challenges that me and Callum have had is scheduling more than anything. I don't know if you'd agree with me on that, Callum.
Oh yeah, we're like we struggle to be in the same place at the same time.
Yeah, like
we're the worst team ever for that.
Yeah, like it was like, it sounds really bad, but it's literally a case of so me and Callum used to live in Portsmouth, not in the same house, but essentially like a stone's throw away from each other. I now live an hour and a half to 2 hours away, where there's like 3 schools in close proximity to me.
Right.
And Callum still lives in Portsmouth, but also Callum works full time. I've been intermittently working full and part time. So I think for us, when it came to like one of the biggest things we've had to overcome is our scheduling, because it's kind of like one of us will just go to training and we'll almost expect the other person to be there.
Right.
Because, it's wrestling. We're a team. We're training together. Like, I think we it's the typical, we assume the other one should be there, but we end up making an ass out of you and me type thing. But we before lockdown, we had overcome this.
Right.
Because or before lockdown, I say before the pandemic, we had started to overcome this because I was working full time down in Portsmouth, and Callum was working full time living in Portsmouth. So our paths were naturally crossing. We speak more on like online when it comes to ideas, like especially from like March to June. I can't tell you the amount of times I think I messaged Callum quite a few times with different storyline ideas and move ideas and stuff like that, and Callum's done the same to me as well. But I think, yeah, one of the major issues we had is scheduling. I think we've overcome that now in the grand scheme of things because we just talk to each other. Like, it sounds really dumb, but actually executing, just chatting to each other. Like,
well, it doesn't help that my work, I alternate like morning and evening shifts. So every other week I'm not able to go during the weekdays, which is unhelpful, and sometimes I work weekends. So really, it's like I'm there I'm there every day I can be there, pretty much.
Yeah. And like, I've spoken to teams about this before, and they've had the same issue before, and they didn't realize it was a problem till their coach pointed out the problem. Like, of where's your teammate? And it's like, I don't know. It's like, well, you should, because if they're not here, like, what are you gonna do? Like, it sounds really dumb and it sounds really obvious, but literally, like, that's probably the biggest thing we've had to overcome ourselves together. And I think also a problem we had at the beginning, but it's way ironed out more now recently. But coming out of like the pandemic, we probably want to try and evolve it further, is like what the tag team was, or what the tag team is, and also the aesthetic that we go for as well.
Right.
Like, I think our aesthetic is pretty good. Like, the colors that we've chosen, etc. Like, the characters that we're starting to mold into and we have ideas for, is starting to develop, or was starting to develop. It's been like,
I think
however
that's
long.
the awkward part.
Yeah.
We had our last match and it really felt like that clicked on a different level to everything else, and then
We'd gone up a rung by a country mile. In the last match that we had, we felt like we had absolutely gone up a rung. The crowd, just by walking out and the way we were interacting with the crowd and the way we were in the ring, like, the crowd were really into the match. And yeah, I just think, like, one of the biggest problems that we are having is probably this pandemic.
Right.
Because we're struggling to think of ideas. We're struggling to act on what we want to act.
We have all these ideas and we have all these different things we want to try, but we've not been able to. It felt like really like we'd got hit our stride basically at that last show, and then the pandemic came in and it's like killed all of that momentum. So it feels like a bit like we're just gonna have to start again anyway, but it's not
quite
be
square
big
one.
a deal, but it's just gonna have to be like we're gonna have to come back in and figure out where we were and where we want to go from there.
Yeah, and I think we both as well, like, together and privately, we've been thinking of ideas to like develop ourselves as characters and ourselves as a team to really like push us on, to really further us. Because like, it's great that we're a face tag team. There's not a lot of those, but how do we become the face tag team is kind of the final step and almost the next step as well.
Right.
It's the next major goal to hit, like that, and get on like major shows. But
pro main shows
basically. When it came to facing other teams, amazingly, I don't think we've had many problems when it's come to facing other teams. Like, we're fairly new in the ranks compared to the teams we faced. So we don't want to like have a match that we want. Almost, we want to have a match that like the other team want to be a good match, and we put our sprinkle on it almost.
Right.
Because we want to learn. Every single tag match that we've had when it's just us two has been against guys that have been wrestling for 4 or 5 plus years. Like, we want to learn off you. We want to know what they know.
Right.
Because they're miles ahead of us comparatively.
Yeah.
the biggest, I think, evidence in that is like when we faced Dan and Curtis, that match was a massive learning curve for us.
Mhm.
Oh,
and
geez.
you know, like going through that, like it's really hard to step into the ring with people who've trained you, and there's all that nerves going in. It's like, okay, I don't want to screw up in the ring because I'm against the people who's trained me, who's taught me these moves, who's watched me do these moves and helped me perfect them a whole lot more and like tuned it up a bit for me. And to go to wrestle, you know, Dan and Kurt, you know, those guys can switch instantly from singles to tag to multi-man to whatever, because they've been doing this for a very long time. And like you guys said, they are on, you know, Ref Pro main shows, and they have been for a very, very long time. They've gone against, you know, there's some big names that they've gone against, toe to toe against, and Mad Kurt being Mad Kurt likes to troll people on Twitter. So he, you know, getting the opportunity to wrestle, you know, your trainers as well, and also them coming back and saying, I actually really enjoyed that match, and you being backstage just thinking like, okay, it probably went horribly wrong, but having that reassurance of like, yes, this part in the match went wrong, things don't go according to plan, but I really did enjoy the match. And that's a good little like feeling to have. It's like, okay, cool, I need to work on this, but overall everything else went well.
Yeah, like I feel like I was putting way too much pressure on me, and I don't know if Callum will say us, but I feel like I was like, this is like proving grounds moment. This is the proving match for like me and Callum, and I'm like, it's our third match. Looking back on it, I'm like, bro, get out your own head. Like, yeah, it's the trainers, but again, like, I felt like I was putting way too much pressure on myself,
Right.
and that probably didn't help. Going into the match, coming out of the match, being almost dejected with myself for messing up, but then having the reassurance of like, yeah, I enjoyed it. It was like, and to come, and as well, for that to actually come from your coaches who you've known for like, at this point for me and Callum, the better part of 2 years.
Right.
Like, that is so, I'm trying to think of the word, but
it's just a good feeling, isn't it?
It's like the fact that I have messed up that situation that badly, and to come back and it be like, yeah, but I enjoyed the match. Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's like,
doesn't matter.
Like it shows that one small moment of a match doesn't make the match. The match just makes the match.
I think that was like probably the most important lesson of that match, is that you can mess something up, but it doesn't matter as long as you keep going.
I remember Dan coming backstage and telling us both, like, you're still rushing. Like, don't worry.
Yeah.
Like, and he was like, almost everything in the back half, like, you were rushing. You need to just, like, slow down.
It's because someone dropped Kurt on a powerbomb.
I know. Okay. And we panicked because of it, but that's never going away. Like, even, like, I get that from everyone. I even get it from Brendan White on occasion.
I like like dropping someone from a powerbomb is very, very scary.
We say drop him. He dropped him in the way where Kurt landed on him, so Kurt was
fine.
Kurt was fine.
The thing is, right, is that when that happened, okay, and I'm sure you're probably going to splice the clip in here, Kartik, because you can easily find it. When that happened, though, is like, literally when it happened, you can see it watching it back, and I was like, I just thought as I took him up, like my back just went. But like what happened is I took it back and I was literally leaning back as it happened. I didn't have the support in my back and I just literally went. But my first thought was, okay, like screw myself. Is Kurt going to be all right? I need to make sure Kurt's all right and then worry about the match afterwards.
Right.
So I just tried to like hold Kurt as steadily as possible, even though my knees kind of like almost buckled in on themselves and my back just gave way as well. Like that was like my first thought was make sure Kurt's all right.
Yeah. It's like that's the essential thing. The person giving a move is always, you know, in charge of the other person's well-being and safety.
Yeah.
If you tear a muscle, you tear a muscle. As long as that other person is safe, you're fine.
Because
it's all about
as
teamwork.
well, because it was like so close. Sorry to interject, but because it was like so close to the turnbuckle as well, I didn't just want to fall backwards.
Right.
Because he'd already had a problem with a turnbuckle previously, so I just didn't want to I didn't want to emphasize that.
Yeah.
Didn't want to drop him on it.
Again.
And like, making sure
not me personally.
And you two, like, making sure each other's okay, and that's the most important thing in a match. When a match is happening and stuff, you can generally tell if the person can continue on or they cannot continue on. As you check on each other, you good, yep, you good to go, yep, you good to go, cool, sweet, let's go. And that is probably one of the best examples of that is, Kurt would probably be pissing himself laughing, but
he was,
but like also like making sure, are you okay? And if you didn't give him a response of saying no, like, I don't think I can continue, then he would have ended the match right there. But you guys got up, finished off the match, went backstage, and then you started thinking about the mistake and stuff. But it's a very good example of how communication is very important, and how communication and teamwork is very important as well, because you're trying to make him look good, he's trying to make you look good, and everything meshes together and stuff. And I think you guys going away from that match opened up so much more things for you guys, and also gave you guys a whole lot more to think about as a team, and to be like, okay, cool, we need to improve here, this is good, we just need to tighten it up a little bit. And I don't know if you guys agree or not, but I think that like having matches with your trainers opens up so much more, and you look at it in a different style, and in like, instead of looking at it in a 2D 3D kind of way, you look at it in like 4 5D kind of way.
I agree, definitely, especially with that match, because that match, like the structure of that match, it was easily like the most complicated structure we'd ever done at that point. And so it was a really big confidence boost to be like, oh, we can do that, we can do matches like that.
I think Kurt got the structure off Chris Brooks or something, or the match he had with Chris Brooks the week before, I think.
I don't know.
I think I could be wrong, but I've got a distinct memory of him having a match with Chris Brooks like the week prior to us planning our match. So I was like, okay, this is gonna be fun. But especially as well, it's like I said earlier, it's like you can only train so much for like a show until you get onto a show, until you get on to do a match. Like us wrestling with our essentially our trainers on that show, it's like you said, it opened up so many more possibilities. It gave us new avenues to think down on, like
so many new ideas.
Yeah, like match structure, but like not only just like us in terms of like what we could do together, but in terms of like match structure, like selling in the situation, like etc. Because like for us, that was mine and Callum's first face versus face match as well.
Oh right.
Like so we had to think, but also we're trying to learn, like, how do we make us look more sympathetic than Dan and Kurt? But like Dan and Kurt are loved by the audience that we were performing in front of. So how do we do it in such a way? Admittedly, there were like a few small spots that like gave the hint that like Kurt and Dan were the villains in that situation. For example, straight after that power bomb, me and Callum were going to go and hit the springboard on, was it Dan? I think it was.
I can't remember that.
Yeah.
I think it was Dan, but I think Kurt like pushed you off.
Exactly. Kurt pushed me off. Like I went up, was on the top rope, like mid jump, Kurt pushed me and I hit the ropes on the perpendicular side, gut first across the top. And you could hear for a split second the boos, and like almost the kids go, oh wait, but that's Kurt. We like Kurt. But it was like there's small hints. We needed to create small elements, not like have a big show at the start of who's good, who's face. Rather do the shake of respect, have a match, the more experienced guys know how to play the game. We don't. At the end of the match, handshake, done. That was kind of, I think that was more or less the storyline we were going for.
Right. And like walking away from all of that and all those matches and getting like soaking it all of that, and what did you guys do differently to prepare for your matches after that, and how did you guys go about it, and what was it like getting to work with a New Japan person, Hikuleo?
Oh, okay. So
Oh god.
like we went from the Dan and Cat match to the match with Kenneth and Sean, and then we did that match. So we were like coming into that match, and Gideon came to us one day at training, and he was like, right, so we're going to be doing this match. It's going to be 4v4. We don't know all the participants yet, so what we're going to do is we're going to come up with an outline, and then we're going to fill it with spots when we know who everyone
Who's in it.
is.
Right.
And even then, an hour before the show, we didn't know who the final participant was.
Yeah, but
It was
it turned
umming
out
and
fine.
ahhing.
But it was like after the other two matches and stuff, you just kind of have like a confidence that if you're asked to do, if the spot is like something you can probably do it after like the two matches you've had. And it's just like, especially working with someone like Hikuleo, who's very laid back, we'd be like, oh, what do you want to do? And he'd be like, I don't mind, I got this move, and then I was there like, okay, so I want to do this and this. Is that cool? And he's like, yeah, dude, that's fine. I was like, oh, excellent, great, we'll do that then.
Yeah, no, bro. It was quite funny though, because he shut me down at one point because I was like, "Oh, I've got this move in mind," and he was like, "Dude, that's for an indie show. This is the family show." And I was like, "Okay." And then I was like, "But what about?" Oh no, it was more like me and him like trying to come up with something. And I was like, "Okay, but like I've got this comeback spot instead." And he was like, "Oh, cool." And I was like, "But I usually Rana the guy," and he was like, "Well, I'm like 6'8", so no." And I was like, "Fair." So I just I like, what was quite fun in that as well, working with Hikuleo, is that I was still using the same spot for a comeback I'd been using on all the previous shows.
Right.
But because he's 6'8", I had to change the moves ever so slightly, still get the same impact and emphasis, but make it suit him. So for example, instead of a Rana, I did a low leg drop and a senton, and then I just got beat the hell up afterwards. So, but that, yeah, it was fun. Like for that as well, it was learning like you can still do the same spot, but you can interchange it with moves to make it fresh.
Right.
Like the perfect example of that, for example, is AJ Styles. If you actually watch AJ Styles, pretty much most of his matches where he's the face, he literally just does an international, but with a drop kick at the end and an extra leapfrog, and that's it. So like it's splicing it up and making it more entertaining for the fans, but still doing your same spot.
Right.
If that makes sense. So that was very interesting learning.
And like him also like mentioning and shutting you down, saying this is not an indie show, it's a family show. Him having going through the system that he's gone through, and him it wasn't easy for him to go through the system that he went through, purely because he's got two brothers in there as well, and it's just a whole lot more expectations when there's like family members involved. But him going through and then letting you know as well as like, and him instantly being able to differentiate the two, saying this is a family show, that move may not work here because it's not an indie show. If it was an indie show, it would work, but since it's a family show, it kind of doesn't really make sense. And that's a experience factor coming in. And like like you guys have been saying, you guys want to go up against people where you can learn from and take things away from. And I think that was one of the important lessons there was being able to read crowds, being able to tell the two different things and be like, cool, this is a family show, these things will work. This is an indie show, these things will work. This is the TV show, these things will work, these things won't, and vice versa and stuff. Getting that experience and getting all these things and taking away from it and trying to mesh it together to what to make it work for you guys. What are the teams that you would like to face that you haven't faced before, and what is the ultimate goal that you would like to get as a tag team in professional wrestling?
How many teams are we allowed to list off that we want to face?
As many as you want.
Right. I think the obvious one for us to in Britain is Aussie Open.
Yeah, it would be Aussie Open, and then it would have been CCK, but I don't think they're a thing anymore. So it's just
they're kind of you've got
now.
Yeah, I mean, if you could throw Schadenfreude in the similar kind of mix, I guess. Yeah. Like Aussie Open, CCK, and Schadenfreude. Yeah.
If Suzuki and Zach have another,
even any Suzuki Gun partnership with Zach, like Zach and Suzuki, Zach and Taichi, Zach and El Desperado, like any of them. There's
like
one,
the main tag teams.
Yeah,
in the British scene that you see that would pop into my head straight away, like without me having to sit and like Google.
Yeah,
people that I've probably forgotten about.
One I would have liked to face, but we won't get the opportunity now. At least not for a few years. One team I would have loved to have faced is White Wolf, Team White Wolf. I'd have loved to have faced A-Kid and Carlos Romo, because they both bring like they look like they have similar styles, but they're dead different. Like A-Kid's demonstrating that now in WWE. But he's such a good technical wrestler, and he's younger than me as well, which makes it so much worse because he's like 22 or something like that, 23, I think. So Team White Wolf would have been good, but even then, like some of the indie teams I'd really like to face as well is I say indie, but they are like British indie, is Chuck Mambo and TK.
Oh, that would have been fun, yeah.
Like I think Teeks is he's back in New Zealand at the moment.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
Like that would be fun. That would be very fun as well, because I just think it'd be an absolute fun time, just kicking each other.
Just be fun, wouldn't it?
And getting headbutted.
For goals, I think probably like the top goal we have currently is get on RevPro main shows and get the British tag team titles, but who knows how long in the future that is, but that's probably the thing.
Yeah, I think like there's kind of like a couple of goals, but we've got, I think, certain goals that we've got in mind to hit first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like obviously
like a sequence.
Yeah, so obviously RevPro main shows is like the furthest away goal currently for us that we can hit.
Right.
But the main goal at the end of the day, then the main goal after that is tag team titles, or to be like all booked everywhere.
It would be like main shows, your call
titles.
Like, you know those lists people have where they're like, do wrestle these buildings, wrestle these people.
Right.
Yeah. This is a weird one as well. Like this is a weird one for me personally, but one thing I'd really like to do is make New Wave a brand as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like you see it with like Schadenfreude, CCK, well, Death by Roll Up, CCK, Bullet Club and NWO are the number 1, 2, and 3 examples of that.
Yeah.
Like I would love to make New Wave a brand as well. Like I've started seeing it recently with some of the other wrestlers coming through the scene quicker than us. Guys like Billy Hayes, he's starting to make a bit of a brand for himself. But that's something I'd love for us to do, because I think like me and Callum, we've got a bit of a niche. Niche is the wrong word, but we've kind of found a bit of an aesthetic that isn't really tapped in British wrestling at the moment that I think we could really pry into. in
Right.
terms of being a brand.
Mhm.
We've basically just got to find the crack in the hole and pry it open and really have some fun with that.
Right. Do you
Like,
guys...
I think, go on.
No, you go on. Sorry.
I think Callum knows what I mean, but we'll talk about it privately, so we don't publicly disclose anything.
I think I know what he means. I have a good idea.
That's promising. That's more than I usually
We'll
get from
see
most
what
people.
he says, and if I do actually know.
And
Because
agree with it.
sometimes he's been like, Callum knows what this is. Callum, tell him, and I'll be like,
What are you on?
I'll be like, that is not the spot we agreed to. What?
This is not what we said.
But I'm like, it's
Yeah,
fine.
he'll be like-
I'm the
he'll be
one
like-
risking my life.
He'll be like, this is a good idea. You'll like this. Callum, come in. I'll be like, what? And then he'll be like, what if we do this? And I'll be like, that's not what I said. That's not what I messaged you.
This is not what I said.
This was not the
I know.
GIF I sent
And
you.
then-
I could picture that too.
Our opponents will be like, oh, okay. So what did you say? And I'll tell them, and they'll be like, oh, okay. All right, we'll do that.
Callum's makes sense.
Yeah.
George
Mine
is off a world away.
Yeah, it's just.
You can imagine that. You've met us.
Oh yeah.
You can imagine that. Like, he's
I can.
probably seen it. I'm pretty sure everyone we've ever trained with or had a match with has seen us just be like,
I think
George,
one
what is
of
your problem?
I think one of the classic things that happens whenever we're going through a match is, I'll be discussing like my ideas for a spot, and then you'll be like, and then we can do this, and I'll be like, we're not doing that.
That's at least 5 times like per match planning every time.
I've had a small taste of that at training matches, and I remember I can remember George coming up and goes, "Oh, we can do this," and then Callum just like, "No, we're not doing that. We're just gonna do this instead."
You can tell who wears the trousers in this relationship.
Do you guys have personal individual goals that you would like to hit?
Pretty much the same as what I said, to be honest, at this stage. But there's like probably like one of my personal goals would just be like to get a chance to go to, this is such a generic answer, but just get a chance to go to like Japan or flown out to America.
Right.
Just get the chance to be like flown out somewhere to work.
Mhm.
That
Yeah,
would always be fun.
it's like there's kind of like 3 goals I have in mind, but they all kind of come under that umbrella. One of them is working in Japan or being flown out to Japan, like whether it's for like DDT, New Japan, All Japan Pro, Stardom, even if that.
I don't think you're allowed.
No,
to
I
work for that.
I don't think so either.
I think they have think they have certain rules about.
They have
who
a
can
certain
work there.
policy, yeah. But any of them, any of the companies in America like Chikara or whatnot,
They don't exist anymore.
No, they don't.
Cut that
Cut
bit.
that. I only say that because Shay went out there. But like even like Ring of Honor as well, or like absolutely almost anything and everything would be grand. New Zealand, Kartik.
I'll work
But that'd be
I'll
like,
work on it. I'll call up my contacts. Put a good word in.
yeah, get your discount for a visa. But like that'd be great. 2 other ones I kind of have in mind is one of them is or get a contract or be offered a contract. But kind of under that umbrella as well is like live off wrestling.
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's
Like
make
if
it full-time career.
yeah, like don't get me wrong, in Britain and in British Indies, it's both tougher than ever and also more possible than ever.
Right.
Like 5 years ago, if you turn around to someone and said in Britain, "Oh yeah, I want to live off wrestling, I want to get a contract," you'd probably get laughed out the building.
Mhm.
Whereas now, those same people who were saying those same goals 5 years ago are living off wrestling. They are like getting contracts. They're going to like Ring of Honor, New Japan, WWE, etc.
Mhm.
Like the only difference is that it's 5 years later. So
Yeah.
who's to say what can happen in 5 years' time?
Yeah.
Like,
Like
you know, it's for British wrestling in general, there's still a fountain of possibilities, and I genuinely don't think it's been tapped still. I think
Right.
They've like slowly opened the faucet,
Mhm.
but I still think there's a boatload more to come.
And
Personally,
I think once this COVID stuff is all dealt with.
Yeah. Whenever that
Especially
is.
here.
Yeah, especially over there, whenever all of that is dealt with and stuff. I can see it, and it'll be a few years away from now. But the dedication and stuff that you guys have working as a team, and having the chemistry that you guys have, and having the friendship that you guys have working as a team as well, and putting the time and the effort in, I can see you guys being at your core, seeing you guys being tag team champions, and so much more. It's just everybody forgets that wrestling isn't a race; it's a marathon, and things take time.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think all of us get in. Well, I say all of us. I certainly do. I get in my own head about seeing other people getting other opportunities and stuff like that, and I'm like, why is that person getting that, and why am I not? And like, that's quite a very frank thing to say, but I think we all think it at one time or another.
Yeah.
And then
But I think we've just got to get out of our own heads. We can't compete against other people. That's unfair. You compete against yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a better spot than you were 6 months ago, bravo, like genuinely.
Yeah.
Compete against yourself. Don't compete against other people, because you will always fail.
Yeah.
He has those thoughts, and then he comes to me, and I'm like, we'll get there, don't worry.
Yeah, because like I'm an insecure piece of shit. I'm an insecure
He's
piece
like-
of shit.
He's like, oh, we're not getting on these shows, and I'm just like, don't worry, just keep grinding.
Just hold the
get
fuck
there.
down.
Yeah. And it's again, it's you know, Dan coming to you and saying slow down in the ring, but he also means just take your time. Everything will happen in time, and everything will happen for the right reasons and at the right moment. And there'll be times and stuff where those thoughts do pop in everyone's heads and stuff, and they're like, oh well, man, I've really been doing this and doing that and doing this, but I wanted it now, but I'm not getting it now. But it just means that when that opportunity comes knocking at the door, you're gonna like blow the door off the hinges. And when you get that moment is gonna be so much more bigger, special, and it's gonna mean a lot more. Just because it's not happening right now doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It just means you got to continue doing the work that you're doing, and just making New Wave the brand that you would want it to be. And it will happen, and it's just taking the time and putting the steps in place for it. And it's a lot of commitment. If it was easy, everybody would do it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's people, there's guys like we're seeing, me and Callum are seeing now, who are getting opportunities, who, I'm not gonna lie, I'm like, I'm so glad you're getting the opportunities, because you genuinely deserve it. Like, I think Callum again like knows a couple of guys who we train with, who like I'm talking about, like some of the guys who are like getting the main roster recognition and the storylines and other opportunities elsewhere, like some of the guys are like, in fact, no, most of the guys who are getting the opportunities, if not all of them, are fully deserving of those opportunities. But like, for example, one of them's waited like 9 years, and the other one's waited, well, 3, 4,
Right.
comparatively. But he like is, to see it happen is brilliant, because it will happen at some point. It just takes longer for some than others.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, whether that be injury or whatever else, even just like necessity even.
Yeah. I think that's like one of the things, especially when people talk about people like breaking out. It's like, from one performance, it kind of like undersells it. Like, they had that one performance that everyone noticed, but it's not like they just turned up and did it that day. They've been doing those things like for years.
Right.
And eventually it gets to the point where it finally hits that bit where they've been doing all this stuff and it gets noticed, and then it finally catches on for them. But it doesn't, like, despite what it seems like, especially with how like the internet is now and stuff, no one breaks out like just overnight. They try different things, they try loads of things, and then eventually they hit that one thing. But it's not like luck or anything like that. It is the effort of going through, having ideas that don't work and stuff like that.
Right. What is next for New Wave?
getting back to wrestling after this pandemic ends.
Yeah, getting on a show, getting back to wrestling, training, and not dying of cardio, not dying from cardio.
Fair enough.
Literally, like that's
He's
kind of
gonna
it.
die of cardio.
Yeah, I think that's established. That's why I stand out on the ringside while you get beat up.
That's why he takes the heat.
Yeah, that's why I take the heat.
Yeah, because I get blown up otherwise.
Is there anything that you would like to say, or any advice, or any advice you would like to receive from people watching this?
If you are ever on the fence about trying wrestling, just go for it. The worst that happens is you try it and actually wrestling isn't for you, but you still enjoy it. Like, what's the worst thing that happens from that? You spend like a couple quid on a training class, and then, but if you try it and it works out, then you're in the money, aren't you? Really?
Yeah.
Right. Because
That's-
once you
that's-
get into wrestling, it's pretty great.
Yeah, like I think most of the things that, like, bearing in mind me and Callum are fairly inexperienced when it comes to wrestling, I think we kind of covered most of the basis / advice we could probably give. But I'd say I agree with Callum on that 100%. Just try it. If you like wrestling and you want to give wrestling a try, just try it. And then when you've tried it, don't be afraid to try different things. Like there's things I've seen recently where I'm like, just they've tried something different and it's worked so well.
Mhm.
because it is different. It's not the niche. And we're seeing like the same things no longer working. In this day and age, people want to see different and they want to be engaged. Just try different things, have fun with it. Wrestling's both creative and based on a sport, but it's creative for a reason. Just try whatever you want to try and just try and go for it as much as possible. That's kind of it.
Thank you so much for taking the time out and giving us, inside story of you guys. And obviously, I know
It's all right. It's bedtime for me now.
Yeah, it's very late over there, so I know the time difference is very, very difficult to deal with. But I really do appreciate you guys taking the time out. And
Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this.
Thank you.
Genuinely, not sarcastically.
And I'm looking forward to doing another one later on, after a couple of years after you guys have done your core.
Maybe we could all do it in the same country.
Maybe.
Together.
Thank you very much for joining us. I'll catch everybody on the next episode of Behind the Wrestler. And I couldn't think of a better way of kicking off 2021 with the first episode with New Wave. If you haven't checked them out, please check them out. I will have all of their social media links when this episode goes up. So please give them a follow. Please give them a like. Please buy their merch and everything else in between. I will appreciate it. And I will catch you guys on the next episode of